As an Amazon associate, we earn from qualifying purchases. This podcast is supported by its listeners. If you choose to purchase something using links on our website, we may earn a commission. No books were warped, dog-eared, underlined with purple pen, eaten, cursed, cancelled, burned, or otherwise harmed in the making of this podcast. I'm Tom Tolkien, and this is the School Reading List, a podcast that recommends books you'll want your children to read and books you'll wish you'd read as a child. And to kick off episode 39 of the School Reading List podcast, let's rip open some book post. Carnival Fantástico by Angela Montoya. Angela Montoya's Carnival Fantástico centres on Esmeralda, who poses as a fortune teller in a magical travelling carnival, and Ignacio, an army defector searching for evidence against his father. They form an alliance to expose corruption and secure a future in the carnival, all while navigating old feelings and hidden dangers. Set in a magical romantasy world, this unput-downable, fast-moving novel for 14-plus-year-olds weaves magic, secrets and second chances into its unceasingly exciting plot. Insectarium Junior Edition by Emily Carter and Dave Goulson. This sumptuously illustrated guide introduces insect life to 7-plus-year-olds using fascinating chunks of text and richly detailed artwork. Created in collaboration with the Royal Entomological Society, it covers a wide range of species from butterflies to beetles, with close attention to habitats and key scientific features. The museum-style layout suits dip-in browsing as well as use as a reference text. Perfect for Key Stage 2, it supports science learning and builds understanding of insect diversity and evolution. Highly recommended. When Tad Kicked Vlad by Julian Gough and Ross Collins. A row over birthday cake ends with Tad kicking his friend Vlad, and the unexpected burst of violence does not stop there. It passes from person to person, spreading further each time with serious but hilarious consequences. Vlad kicks Bill, who kicks Jill, and further down the line a police officer kung fu kicks the president. Tad has to work out how to stop it and put things right. It's a butterfly effect meets playground politics meets present-day international relations, and this memorable story for 0 to 6-year-olds cleverly uses humour and repetition to show how a single flash of frustration can grow if no one steps in to stop it. Exploring anger, consequences and choices, it's perfect PSHE material for primary schools. A modern classic, every school should buy a copy. Mrs. Owl's Forest School, a treasure hunt surprise by Ruth Simmons, illustrated by Seb Braun. Mouse, Squirrel, Fox and Rabbit take part in a forest school session led by Mrs. Owl. With their practical kit list and Mrs. Owl's guide to trail making, they learn how to follow clues during a woodland treasure hunt. The story introduces wildlife, outdoor play, things to look out for, and lots of exciting shared activities through a clever and educational plot. Vibrant illustrations blend bursts of group reading friendly story scenes with interwoven knowledge. Part of the popular Forest School series, it's ideal for 3 to 6-year-olds. Don't Do It, Doug by Maudie Powell-Tuck. Doug the hamster never listens to the voice telling him to stop. He pushes buttons, pulls cords, and ignores warnings, and things usually go wrong. After one mishap too many, Doug tries channeling his energy into new activities with his friends instead. Told with catchy humour and bold illustrations, this lively read-aloud story for 3 to 6-year-olds looks at impulse control and thinking about consequences. It's ideal to discuss in EYFS settings. I Am Strong Just Being Me by Laura Dockrill and Kip Alizadeh. When Bean asked Nana what it means to be strong, the answer isn't as simple as they expect. Is strength about winning, speaking the loudest, always being right? Or could it be something quieter, kindness, resilience, or knowing when to listen? With gentle, thoughtful storytelling and expressive illustrations, this book flips the usual idea of strength on its head, inviting children to see power in unexpected places and in themselves. A beautifully written, warm, reflective read that lingers long after the last page. Now available in paperback. Happy Hills, Cheesy Bob Strikes by Sophie Henn. A monkey magician called Cheesy Bob turns up in Happy Hills with revenge on his mind, but Ace spots the danger first and scrambles to warn the others before the anarchic magic gets out of hand. What follows is fast-paced, noisy chaos with vibrant comic action and a crowd of familiar faces including Mimi, Shroomer and the Knickknacks. This full-colour graphic novel, the fourth in the Happy Hills series, is perfect for 5+-year-old fans of Bunny vs. Monkey and Dogman. Watts and Whiskerton, The Great Glacier Hotel Heist by Meg McLaren. In their third adventure in the illustrated first chapter book series, dog detective Watts and his cat partner Pearl head to a glacier hotel for a well-earned holiday. The relaxing break doesn't last long. The prized ice crystal vanishes and Watts' parents are blamed. Determined to clear their names, Watts and Pearl dig into the locked room mystery, questioning guests, staff and anyone acting suspiciously. This fun detective story for 5+-year-olds blends snow, skiing, teamwork and plenty of illustrated inferential clues. Detective Stanley and the Green-Thumbed Thief by Hannah Tunnicliffe. Detective Stanley is called in when rare plants start disappearing from Gnarlybourne Gardens. With Parker Pine alongside him, he follows visual clues hidden in the artwork to track down the thief. The mystery unfolds through detailed illustrations rather than long text, inviting inquisitive 5 to 9-year-olds to spot evidence on every page. Designed for emerging readers, it cleverly bridges picture books and comics, while focusing on careful retrieval, inference and problem solving. Highly recommended. The Galaxy World Cup by Alan Joyce. Mistaken for professional footballers, a group of eager schoolchildren are whisked across the galaxy to compete in an intergalactic alien tournament. Playing on unfamiliar pitches against very strange teams, they must work together to survive the matches and find their way back home. Ideal for 7 to 12-year-olds, this wacky, fun-filled debut celebrates teamwork, friendship and perseverance, and is likely to be popular in the run-up to the 2026 FIFA World Cup. How to Speak and Be Heard, a kid's toolkit for oracy and confident speaking by Sam Hutchinson and Vicky Barker. Children will learn the basics of oracy, from speaking with confidence to really listening and choosing the right way to communicate. This book offers practical tips for research, debate and collaborative play, all aimed at helping 7 to 12-year-olds use their voices well and make a positive impact. Written by Sam Hutchinson and illustrated by Vicky Barker, it serves as a useful toolkit for developing a personal communication style ahead of secondary school. Stitchhead by Guy Bass. Left behind in Castle Grotskew, Stitchhead quietly watches over the strange creatures created by Professor Erasmus and keeps himself out of sight. That routine cracks when a circus ringmaster spots him and promises attention, applause and a way out. But stepping into the spotlight brings risks Stitchhead has never faced before. Illustrated by Pete Williamson, this highly engaging chapter book for 8 to 10-year-olds explores what happens when being noticed suddenly matters. It's now set for a highly anticipated UK cinema release in February 2026, ideal for less enthusiastic readers in Key Stage 2. The Moonhaven Chronicles, The Last Wolf by Rob Biddulph. Jax, Jovi, Esau and Forth love sneaking out after dark to uncover Moonhaven's secrets. But when a werewolf attack terrifies the town, the friends are suddenly accused and hunted by the Nighthawks. On the run, they must stick together to uncover what's really lurking in the shadows before time runs out. Packed with over 100 illustrations and quick-fire chapters, Rob Biddulph's outstanding tale drips with mystery, danger and friendship, perfect for 9 to 11-year-olds who crave suspense and thrills. Highly recommended. Mixed. Explore and celebrate your mixed-race identity by Emma Slade Edmondson. Written by award-winning podcaster Emma Slade Edmondson, this immersive guide supports children in understanding and valuing their mixed heritage. It combines practical activities with letters from mixed-race contributors and a wide range of examples drawn from global history. The text, with activities, exercises and short bursts of information, encourages open conversation about identity and belonging, with a range of lived perspectives. Designed for sharing and discussion, it works well in primary and early secondary book clubs and as a PSHE resource for schools and families. Boy vs. Reality by James Fox. Ethan Lacey spends most days on camera, starring in his family's vlog and keeping an eye on the view count. Off-screen, things are messier, with arguments, sibling rows and pressure building at home. As the online version of their life starts to feel fake, Ethan begins to question what the channel is really doing to his family. This fun yet thought-provoking story encourages 9 to 12-year-olds to think about social media, family change and the cost of living. It's highly relatable and ideal for Key Stage 2 book clubs. Escape by Sophie McKenzie, illustrated by Melania Bardoza. Bernice's school visit to a sea life sanctuary turns frightening when she and her friends are swept into the cold water of Shark Bay. Drawing on what she knows about marine creatures, she has to steady her nerves and guide everyone to safety. Set within the aquarium's tunnels and tanks, this highly accessible story blends risk, friendship and speed of thought. Short, pacey and unforgettable, it's bound to grab even the most reluctant readers in lower Key Stage 3. Ooh. Day of Now by Miranda Reason. Dana and Pax have grown up in the shadow of a fungal outbreak that has wiped out most of society. They live quietly with their father until he falls sick, and their call for help brings far more danger than relief. Forced out into a broken landscape, the siblings push on in search of people they can trust. This incendiary young adult story, told in 55 short chapters, follows their shifting threats, uneasy alliances, and the tough choices they must make to keep their family together. It's a fresh, original, and genuinely affecting dystopian novel for 13-plus-year-olds. Highly recommended. Control, Alter, Delete by K.L. Kettle. Hal lives in a world where virtual reality shapes almost everything, and winning the Knox Cup could earn her a meeting with tech icon Francis Knox. What begins as a high-pressure competition soon cracks open, revealing faults in the glossy system she's always trusted. As Hal pushes further, she's forced to question who holds the power and what she's willing to risk. It's a deliciously sharp, speculative young adult story about technology, control and self. Highly recommended for Key Stage 4. Red Star Rebels by Amie Kaufman. In 2067, Hunter Graves and Cleo find themselves stranded at a United Nations base on Mars, with a group of mercenaries closing in. With just 8 hours before the base is destroyed, the two teens are forced into a high-stakes race against time. As danger tightens its grip, this science fiction adventure digs into survival, corporate power, and the uneasy bond that forms between two very different people under extreme pressure. With a sharp premise and stunning delivery, Red Star Rebels will grip 14-plus-year-olds. Thank you to all the publishers and publicists for sending us books to review here on this podcast and on our website schoolreadinglist.co.uk. Here's our rundown of great new children's books hitting the shelves this March. Tick-Tock Around the Clock by Ruth Brown. Her Hidden Fire by Clodagh O'Sullivan. I Am Ray's Imaginary Friend by Brian Moses. The STEM Encyclopedia of Wildlife Words by Jenny Jacoby. Mr. Norton's New Truck by Hugh Lewis-Jones. The Elementals, Wanzu Set Sail by Love Sager. The Whale That Sings in the Deep by Yuval Zommer. Big, Brilliant, World by Matt Rouse. On the Streets of New York by Sarah Kay and Ryan Johnson. When I Was Death by Alexis Henderson. War and Peas by Robert Muchamore. All the Cursed Creatures by Amy Jordan. Death by Chocolates by Anna Brooke. The Future Book by Mac Barnett. Big Words by Luke Palmer. Keeping Possession by Eve Ainsworth. The Aztecs by D.K. Lost Robots by Joe Todd Stanton. Big Book of Pie by John Baptiste Aubin. The Story of Art Without Men by Katie Hessel. The Mubbles by Liz Pitchen. A Degree in a Book Physics by Sydney Perkovich. Cruise Ship Kid Kidnap at Sea by Emma Swan. Dungeon Runners Fang Attack by Kierwan Larwood and Joe Todd Stanton. Dadbot 2 Rise of the Bad Bots by Jack Noel. Monkey Pig by Hugh Aaron. The Overthinkers Club by Nat Lertzima. Burn the Water by Billy Ray. These Shattered Spires by Cassidy Ellis Salter. A Soul Full of Shadows by Derek Landy. Dave Pigeon, Dave vs. Dave by Swapna Haddow. And our picture book of the month is Moe's Stick by Fiona Lumbers. Our non-fiction book of the month is Locked in the Museum by Lesia Stewart Sharp and Acapulco Studios. And our fiction book of the month is I Am Ray's Imaginary Friend by Brian Moses, illustrated by Bethan Welby. Booksy book, let's get reading. If you're a teacher, librarian or avid bookworm who loves children's or YA books and you'd like to review brand new titles for the school reading list, get in touch by email. We'd love to hear from you. The address is reviews@schoolreadinglist.co.uk. And here are some titles from our latest genre book list, survival-themed books for children and teens. The Worst Case Scenario Survival Handbook for Kids by David Borgennicht and Justin Heinberg. 40 outdoor emergencies are broken down into clear step-by-step advice, covering everything from lightning strikes and sandstorms to quicksand, wild animals and falling through ice. Settings range from jungle and desert to open water and frozen lakes. Diagrams and short explanations guide readers through decisions, while a direct conversational style, with jokes threaded through the instructions, makes the guidance accessible. This fascinating book for 8 to 12-year-olds also draws on expert input for survival situations. Foraging, the complete guide for kids and families, by Stella and Dane De Luca Moulin-D. Packed with field-friendly tips, this kids' foraging guide moves from berries and bushes to flowers and trees without getting bogged down. Each entry in this colourful, highly illustrated book for 7 to 12-year-olds sets out what to look for, where to find it, common and scientific names, which parts are used, and when to pick. There's a useful safety guide, advice on sustainable collecting, and a section on poisonous plants. Enticing recipes cover food, drinks, balms and salves, with short challenges and plant folklore. Do Your Best by Bear Grylls. Built like a Scout's Handbook, this immersive guide for 10-plus-year-olds mixes outdoor know-how with the sort of personal skills you use at camp and back at home. It runs through tents, fire, knots, navigation and reading the weather, alongside first aid and looking after the environment. Other sections focus on organisation, teamwork, leadership, fitness and planning. The layout is punchy and precise, using checklists, diagrams and short instructions with prompts tied to Scout values and taking on challenges. Outdoor Survival Skills by Naomi Walmsley and Dan Walmsley. This outstanding practical handbook of outdoor skills for 7-plus-year-olds covers first aid, firelighting and foraging, alongside projects such as making soap, crafting a bow and arrow and rigging a hammock. The content is organised as hands-on tasks suitable for home, garden or campsite. Clear instructions, planning advice, and basic kit lists support each activity, encouraging preparation and independent problem solving through doing rather than just reading. Highly recommended. The Explorer's Guide to Going Wild by Preet Chandy. Drawing on her own experiences, Preet Chandy's The Explorer's Guide to Going Wild is a practical handbook for 7-plus-year-olds keen on outdoor adventures, whether close to home or further afield. Sections cover planning, navigation, teamwork and risk checks, with short accessible chapters tackling den building, foraging, first aid, camping basics and more. Each section includes a mini challenge and short quizzes and personal accounts sitting alongside engaging black and white illustrations throughout. Highly recommended. Live Like a Hunter-Gatherer by Naomi Walmsley, illustrated by Mia Underwood. Stone Age life is introduced through shelter, warmth, food, water, medicine and daily routines. Myth-busting pages and links between past and present needs sit alongside a recurring fictional hunter-gatherer describing a day's experiences. Step-by-step activities cover building a Mesolithic shelter, making fat lamps and digging sticks, creating cave art and making a bow and arrow and fishing hooks. This engaging, highly immersive illustrated hardback is ideal for 7-plus-year-olds, Key Stage 2 libraries and outdoor learning. The Ultimate Survival Handbook by Andy McNabb. Outdoor, urban and online safety are covered in this bright, engaging survival guide for 8-plus-year-olds. Camping basics include shelter, fire, navigation, food and water and first aid, alongside responses to quicksand, tsunamis and wild animal encounters. Additional sections focus on moving around towns, dealing with strangers and handling emergencies in public places. The online chapter covers passwords, privacy, scams and cyberbullying. It's perfect for Key Stage 2 libraries. You Decide Your Adventure by Bear Grylls. This engaging interactive adventure lets young explorers call the shots alongside survival expert Bear Grylls. Kids tackle wilderness challenges, making choices that shape their journey, and each decision flips to a different outcome. Handy survival tips and quirky nature facts add real-world flavour. It's a clever way to nudge readers outdoors without screens, and each new read-through is refreshingly unpredictable. You decide your adventure is perfect for ages 7+ who don't usually read for fun, Key Stage 2 pupils who struggle with concentrating on books, and primary age children who love being outdoors. It'll quickly become a permanent favourite in your upper primary classroom. Highly recommended. The Knots Handbook by Barry Malt and Gillian Blease. This is a wonderfully practical and beautifully illustrated guide to how to make over 45 useful knots. The step-by-step instructions are clear and easy to follow for children who will love trying out the various binds, hitches, loops and ties all around the house, garden or school. There are also interesting snippets of history and biography, making this a great book for home learning projects. However, your washing line may never be the same again. Survivors by David Long and Kerry Hindman. This stunning illustrated large-format anthology for 9 to 11-year-olds recounts gripping true survival stories, with each chapter focusing on a single real event. Accounts include Ernest Shackleton's Antarctic expedition, Aaron Ralston's Canyon ordeal, Poon Lim adrift at sea, Julian Kupke in the Amazon, and Anna Bargenholm trapped under ice. Each story is paired with a full-page or double-page illustration showing a key moment. The accessible text explores the sequence of events and the difficult decisions that led to rescue or recovery. It's an ideal non-fiction text for Upper Key Stage 2. Gone by Michael Grant. In a small California town, everyone over 14 vanishes at once, and a barrier cuts the area off from the outside world. Sam Temple and other teenagers scramble to organise food, safety and shelter as public services fail and adults are gone. Rival leaders pull groups into competing factions, and basic rules start to fall apart. Some children develop powers that change the balance. Survival and shortages run through this gripping and unforgettable story for 12+-year-olds, with each 15th birthday marking the next disappearance. The Survival Handbook by Colin Towell. This highly engaging, accessible visual guide to camping and survival skills is written by an ex-SAS combat survival instructor. Suitable for 12+-year-olds, step-by-step sequences and illustrations cover planning, shelters, fire, water, wild food and hazard awareness. There are also sections that examine sea survival and situations such as being lost in jungle terrain. Short case studies describe real survival incidents alongside the practical sections. Information is efficiently organised for quick reference and use on trips. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. When a group of schoolboys survive a plane crash and end up on an uninhabited island with no adults, Ralph becomes leader and sets rules for shelter, food and a signal fire. But Jack leads a rival group focused on hunting. Unfounded fear of a terrifying beast spreads, and the boys' organisation breaks down. Power shifts, groups form, and violence grows as rescue fails to arrive. A classic dystopian survival novel for 14+-year-olds. Dry by Neil Schusterman and Jared Schusterman. A drought in California ends with taps running dry, and Alicia is left trying to protect her younger brother when her parents don't return. As water becomes scarce, neighbours and families compete for what's left and public order breaks down. A group of teenagers stays on the move, with chapters told from different viewpoints. Scenes in this visceral and compelling young adult novel for 14+-year-olds include rationing, conflict in suburban streets, and decisions about food, transport, and safer sources of water. Highly recommended. Here's a selection of exciting new book tasters sent to us by new and self-published children's authors this month.
Every child has a voice. Sometimes they just need the right words to find it. My name is Tara Ellie, and my new book, Little Poets, A Poem a Day, is a gentle, joyful invitation into the world of poetry, one small poem at a time. It contains 365 fun prompts, one for every day of the year, to inspire children to explore their thoughts, their feelings, and the wonders of the world around them. Whether it's read at bedtime, shared in the classroom, or written in together as a daily ritual, Little Poets encourages children to dream, to reflect, and express themselves freely. It's available on Amazon at the moment, and my dream is that it will open the door to imagination, spark a love of words, and help a young voice discover its power, one poem a day.
Hi, my name is Clodagh Ryan, and I'm excited to introduce Sally the Spider, a joyful picture book adventure for children aged 3 to 7. One day, while spinning her web, Sally had the most curious thought. I have 8 tiny feet. Wouldn't 8 tiny shoes be really sweet? And just like that, she sets off into the forest to find them. Along the way, she meets friendly creatures like Freddy the Frog, Rosie Robin, Mr. Mole, and Molly Mouse, each offering clues, kindness, and a bit of fun. With rhythm and rhyme, Sally the Spider is a gentle tale of adventure, friendship, and finding joy in the little things, like the perfect pair of shoes, ×4. Sally the Spider is available now on Amazon. It is the perfect read for bedtime, story time, or little dreamers who love a fun journey with a big-hearted character.
Environmental issues continues, and as parents or teachers of children, our legacy should be to teach the important things affecting the environment, good or bad, and so aid their understanding as the future stewards of Earth. As a grandmother, I have created 4 booklets aimed at 5 to 10-year-olds that are story-based, informative, illustrative, and interactive, allowing them to input their own findings using pictures, lists, drawings, etc., or make posters with parental or adult support through research. The booklets are only available from our website, arcs2learn.co.uk, offering fun moments between parents and children or as group-based activities, all with questions requiring answers. Ask questions, seek answers, knowledge gained.
If you'd like to get in touch and leave a recorded shout-out about your upcoming self-published children's book, only 10% of boys aged 14 to 16 read daily for pleasure. According to a recent report by the National Literacy Trust, only 10% of boys aged 14 to 16 read daily for pleasure. Is this true? And if so, what can we as teachers do about it? How much do boys aged 14 to 16 actually read? Why is this the case? And how can schools improve this situation? If you ask a room of Year 10 boys whether they read, you'll often get a quick answer, and it might not involve many book titles. But if you ask what they read in a normal week, you get a longer, more useful story. Group text, gaming chat, Wikipedia rabbit holes, subtitles, lyrics, match reports, messages, short articles, sometimes comics, sometimes a novel that takes off and is finished in days. The gap between those two answers sits at the heart of the problem schools are trying to solve. The cleanest UK-wide snapshot we have right now comes from the National Literacy Trust's large annual survey work. In 2025, only 9.8% of boys aged 14 to 16 said they read daily in their free time, and 18.8% said they enjoyed reading in their free time. Girls of the same age were higher on both measures, with 17.6% reading daily and 37.7% enjoying reading. Page 4 of the report puts it plainly. Daily reading becomes uncommon by mid-adolescence. Those figures matter because they describe habit, not capability. Daily in free time is a simple threshold. Does reading show up as a normal part of life or as something occasional? By mid-adolescence, the Trust data suggests it's unusual for boys. That pattern has been visible for years in international assessments too. PISA reportedly finds large gender gaps in reading, and in 2018, most 15-year-old boys across OECD countries reported either no reading for enjoyment or less than half an hour a day. It's also worth being honest about what these measures sometimes miss. Surveys usually treat reading as a choice activity and often prompt with questions about books. Teenagers, especially boys, often describe examples of reading that are folded into other things: online forums, fan fiction, streaming media subtitles, walkthroughs, sports news, life tips, fitness and diet guides, fantasy football discussions, and so on. The National Literacy Trust report leans into this and notes that young people now engage with text in many formats, and that we need to look beyond narrow measures. Young people encounter and engage with text across a wide range of formats, it states. Later it flags the same issue in teenagers' own words, observing that some boys read through games and subtitles even when they don't identify as book readers. Reading takes many forms, it states, including games, subtitles, or online content. One example from our research: each Star Trek Starfleet Academy episode, when watched with subtitles, and today's teens love subtitles, contains 8,000 to 10,000 words. It's reading gym, but not as we know it. So why does reading allegedly drop so sharply at 14 to 16? Start with time and energy. GCSE courses intensify, homework expands, and evenings fill up with sport, jobs, caring responsibilities, commuting, screens, and social life. Teenagers describe time pressure and tiredness as major reasons reading is harder to fit in. Then, look at how reading is positioned in school. Many teenagers say they like reading when they control it, and disengage when it feels imposed, monitored, or tied to written accountability that kills momentum. One boy's comment in the report captures the resentment clearly. I actively despise how schools force you to write a summary of your reading. Relevance is the other big lever. In the Trust survey, the most common things teenagers would say would encourage them to read more are straightforward: books that match their interests, freedom to choose, and links to familiar media such as a film or TV series. For boys aged 11 to 16, the report quantifies this. 40.5% selected finding books that match my interests or hobbies. 36.8% selected reading a book linked to film or TV. And 30.7% selected being free to choose what they read. There's also a skills and access layer that schools sometimes underestimate. Some 14 to 16-year-old boys avoid reading because it's slower, effortful, or frustrating. Dyslexia and attention difficulties come up directly in teenagers' comments, alongside descriptions of tracking text and sustaining concentration. All of this sits inside a bigger cultural story. According to research, many boys still pick up the message that reading, especially fiction, is not a normal masculine leisure choice. OECD analysis of PISA data notes that boys are more likely to frame reading as information gathering, and researchers link some of this to identity and peer status, with reading sometimes coded as feminine in adolescent culture. None of this means reading is optional. Longitudinal work in the UK has found that teenagers who read regularly through adolescence show stronger cognitive outcomes, including vocabulary, by the age of 16. The National Literacy Trust also states the education case plainly, and cites wider evidence that regular reading during the ages of 10 to 16 is linked with cognitive progress, referencing Sullivan and Brown in 2014. So what can schools do that actually fits the lived reality of 14 to 16-year-old boys? First, protect time in the timetable and make it easy to start. If reading only relies on free time, it loses to everything else. The most practical school move is still carving out a short, consistent reading slot where pupils can read something of their own choosing with no immediate written task attached. This connects with what boys say about routine. The report notes that boys' reading is often sustained by habit, routine, or perceived usefulness, and becomes easier to displace as those routines weaken. Second, treat choice as the main strategy, not a reward. Boys in the trust data repeatedly say they read more when the material matches their interests and when they're not forced through a narrow diet of approved texts. That does not mean abandoning quality, it means building ladders, short books, series starters, non-fiction that's genuinely expert and current, sports writing, graphic novels, narrative non-fiction, humour, horror, myth retellings, and books linked to games or films. It also means teaching pupils how to browse and abandon without shame. If every abandoned book is treated as a failure, boys stop sampling and stop finding the book that clicks. One line in the report captures the click effect. When I find a book I love, I demolish it within days. Third, widen what counts as reading, then use that as a bridge to longer texts. Many boys already read a lot of text while claiming that they don't read. Schools can work with that, not against it. Articles, manuals, match analysis, long-form journalism, website explainers, scripts, subtitles, and game narratives can all build stamina if teachers name them as reading and help pupils move from short bursts to longer arcs. The Trust report explicitly lists these examples. Boys describe reading digitally through games, subtitles, or online content. And boys also say directly, I enjoy reading subtitles and text messages and comment sections. Fourth, stop accidental sabotage. Some well-meant systems reduce reading. Heavy reading logs, compulsory written reviews, public point scoring that embarrasses reluctant readers, or over-testing that turns reading into yet another performance. The report includes teenagers who say forced summaries and journals put them off. Schools do need accountability, but it can be lighter touch, quick book talk, informal recommendations, teacher conversations, or opt-in sharing rather than compulsory outputs every time. Fifth, invest in the library as a social space, not a museum. Many boys describe reading as solitary and say they prefer social time with friends instead. Libraries that feel like places to be, not places to be judged, are more likely to hold older teens. This is also where formats matter. Manga, graphic novels, magazines, sport writing, short story collections, and accessible non-fiction can make the room feel relevant. Sixth, make reading everybody's job in a practical way. The most credible route is disciplinary literacy, every subject teaching the reading it genuinely requires. with explicit support for vocabulary, complex sentences, and subject-specific text types. That aligns with EEF guidance on secondary literacy. It also fits with what boys say about usefulness, since the report highlights that boys' motivations often centre on learning new things and new words. School Reading List's annual Reading for Pleasure survey work points to a clear pattern. Boys are often keen on books when reading gives them a quick entry access and strong payoff. Imagination-led stories land well, as do formats that feel immediate, especially graphic novels and manga. Longer novels are not automatically rejected, but books with lots of shorter chapters tend to get finished more often, partly because they fit into small gaps in the day. Another recurring preference is structure. Many respondents gravitate towards books with a defined, familiar engine and a satisfying plot shape, including contemporary stories that borrow the steady momentum of procedural fiction. Standalone reads also come up repeatedly, suggesting a dip-in and dip-out habit that mirrors how many teens consume streaming drama. The themes boys mention most are forward-looking and positive rather than bleak. Escapism, survival, second chances, redemption, social recovery after a public mistake, and going from being overlooked to being respected and seen. In school reading list tracking, the authors boys aged 14 to 16 are returning to include Malcolm Duffy, and in particular look at his new novel Dead Straight Line, Tia Fisher, Joseph Colo, Nathaniel Lassaur, Luke Palmer, Phil Stamper, Brian Conaghan, James Goodhand, David Arnold, Ben Oliver and Alex Wheatle. Generational assumptions can also scramble the conversation, because read daily for pleasure means different things depending on who you ask. Many teachers hear reading and picture a suitable book. Librarians often include fiction, non-fiction, poetry, graphic novels, newspapers and magazines, and some parents default to anything printed. Policymakers want a clean metric for programs like the National Year of Reading, but teenagers live in a wider text environment. With messages, web pages, social posts, game text, comment threads and subtitles, plus the caption-heavy culture of short-form video. This is where the false comparisons creep in. Adults may see screens as the opposite of reading, while teens can genuinely be processing huge volumes of words every day, just not in a hardback. There's also a historical echo here too. In the 80s and 90s, text-heavy adventure games and magazines were dismissed as low value, yet many required sustained reading of 10,000 plus words to play or follow. Today's version is subtitles. UK surveys commissioned by Stage Text and reported alongside a YouGov poll found very high subtitle use amongst 18 to 24-year-olds, including 61% saying they generally have subtitles on. That doesn't prove teenagers are building deep reading stamina, but it does show that a lot of young people now choose to read while they watch, often for convenience and focus rather than disability access. If schools only recognise book-shaped reading, they risk missing what teenagers already do well, and they risk signalling that their real reading lives don't count. So, a more honest headline might be this: by 14 to 16, daily voluntary reading is rare for boys in the UK, according to current survey measures. The more hopeful point is that many boys still describe reading as enjoyable, calming and useful, and they do read plenty of text in other formats. Schools get traction when they stop arguing with teenage life and start designing reading that survives it. Protected time, real choice, formats that feel relevant, fewer punitive add-ons like questionnaires, quizzes and reviews, and a library culture that looks like Year 10 belongs there. But, too often, Much of reading in the world of teen boys is clouded by older generations' perceptions. Ask yourself this: which of the following is more likely? You as an adult teacher managing 10,000 steps per day, or your Year 10 student reading, in any format, 10,000 words per day? You might be surprised. If you'd like to get in touch, use the hashtag SRLpodcast on Twitter, or drop us a line using the contact form or messaging button on our website schoolreadinglist.co.uk. And all the books lived happily ever after. The end.